Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome and honor our guest, speaker of the day today, Ms. Sharon Lowen. She is going to share her valuable views on communicating through dance and literature. Very interesting topic, students, mind you. And our eminent guest speaker is one of the most respected exponents of Odissi, Manipuri, and both Mayurbhanj and Saraikela Chau performing arts of India. And she's known for her perfection of style, grace, and superb Abhinaya. And over nearly 5 decades in India, she has become an icon of what can be accomplished on the basis of merit and passion without reference to caste, community, or nationality. She has shown audiences in her through her dance form in India and as well as abroad that maintaining the highest standards of authenticity in classicism can appeal to all members of society while contributing new choreography, teaching, lectures, and writing that moves the tradition forward and gives it vitality for new generations. As a performing artist, scholar, teacher, writer, and organizer, she has dedicated her life to improving the appreciation and understanding of Indian dance traditions, both here as well as abroad. And she is a Fulbright scholar, and in 1973, after completing an independent honors BA in humanities, fine arts, and Asian studies at the University of Michigan, and an MA in dance with a minor in video production and photography, she has made India her Karambhumi. Sharon has featured in her real life role in a best Telugu film in 1988, known as Swarna Kamalam, and which was directed by K. Vishwanath as an American born Odissi dancer. Her role in the film was actually to inspire the heroine to value her own Indian dance heritage. She has received innumerable awards and honors, including the prestigious Prime Minister's Acharya Narendra Dev's Sarokar Samajik Samman by Prime Minister Chandrasekhar in 1991 and the Delhi Administration Parishad Samman in 1993 for individual contribution to Indian arts. Besides performances throughout India and abroad, Sharon has performed, produced, done scripts, and choreographed for films as well as television. So thank you so much, ma'am. You have such a brilliant profile, and you have, done so much for this community of dance and fine arts, and you have been a lecturer. And thank you so much for joining us today. And we are eagerly waiting to hear your valuable insight on the topic of the day for today, that's communicating through dance and literature. Welcome, a big heartiest welcome, ma'am, today to our university and our students, and looking forward to hear from you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jayashri. It's a real pleasure to be with you. It's a wonderful subject, dance and literature, and it's so vast that it's something that some of your students might wish to take a small part of as a PhD project. Because
Yes.
what I can share with you now is a few drops in the ocean of a vast subject. But it is my pleasure to be asked to turn your thinking into some of this. So,
Yes,
what?
ma'am. I'm turning on off my camera. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Both dance and literature are things that transform our lives. Movement and language, both of them uh, into art. Words into art, movement into art. And these are shared languages. And they both communicate and reach us through different and complementary senses and intelligences. So we interpret a text in dance. We don't just copy what the words are saying, because if you're only what we call Mickey Mouse copying what the text is, then you don't need the dance. It has to communicate something on another level or to other senses and different intelligences. It has to give us starting with an enhanced understanding of the text and it might be similar and perhaps a little beyond when you read a play script compared to when you see it brought to life and interpreted on the stage. So, dance is often referred to as a language, but it's unlike any verbal language. And I think that I just wanted to share with you that I think everyone is familiar with the Gardner's 7 intelligences, which he's now expanded to actually till 9. But let me just, okay, these are the different intelligences. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this. So linguistic, as you see on the left, reading, writing, what appeals to our mind, and you have also, if you look in the lower right, the bodily, the kinesthetic, the fact that you experience viscerally through your body. When you're watching a performance, you can feel it in the hairs on your arms. And there's a different kind of an understanding. Some people understand things through these various intelligences. I wanted to share with you a few, let me just open this slightly. Yes, okay, good. I wanted to share with you a few quotes from some dancers on what they had to say. Ted Shawn was someone who came to India in the early part of the 20th century, and he and his wife Ruth St. Denis were pioneers in bringing Asian dance traditions into informing modern dance as it evolved away from the classical ballet, which was basically entertainment. And he said, I believe that dance communicates man's deepest, highest, and most spiritual thoughts and emotions far better than words spoken or written. This is something a dancer needs to feel as a motivation for their communication. His wife, Ruth St. Denis, said, as you see, you can express what is too deep to find for words. And the next generation, great artist, Doris Humphrey, the dancer believes that his art has something to say which cannot be expressed in words or in any other way than by dancing. There are times when the simple dignity of movement can fulfill the function of a volume of words. Now keep in mind, these dancers, choreographers, are speaking from the context of dance in the West, where the mover was separated from the actor or in interpretation of text. So there might be a theme, there might be a story, but it wasn't as closely linked to text as we have in Asian traditions, which I'll talk about in a moment. But this is just the language of movement. And this is a French philosopher. Nothing more notable in Socrates than that he found time when he was an old man to learn music and dancing and thought it time well spent. And the great Martha Graham, dance is the hidden language of the soul. Now, in India, we have, I think everyone's familiar with the Natya Shastra. It's often considered the fifth Veda. And that is, of course, a Sanskrit treatise on the performing arts. It was written or attributed to Bharat Muni, and sometime between 200 BCE and 200 AD. So it could be somewhere around there. Now, this, as you know, it's an encyclopedic treatise on the arts, and it still informs the arts that we're creating. And one of the core things is the Rasa Theory, which is that you want your art to be entertaining, just as when you write, the literature should be entertaining, but that is not the primary goal. You want to transport the individual to another parallel reality that is full of wonder, where you understand the essence of your own consciousness and you reflect on spiritual and moral questions. Just as a side note, sometimes people divide Indian dance into classical and folk or pop, but actually in Natya Shastra, Deshi doesn't mean folk, it means dance that's entertaining. So a great deal of the classical dance that you see today is Deshi. It becomes margi when it is attempting to evoke rasa, when it wants to take you to a metaphysical level. And again, we have so much literature where it is transformative or it's just cotton candy popcorn and it's enjoyable. Now, what's unique in the classical dance in India is that it is a kind of, in a way, a dance drama because it's total theater. The dancer is the actor. Sometimes, traditionally, the dancer would be speaking words, but generally through the body movement, through the gestures, through the expression, through the various forms of abhinaya or dramatic expression, we are communicating. And so you have your pure dance, which means dance that's without text. And then you have your abhinaya, which is taking the text to the next level. When we talk about abhinaya, there's 4 kinds that are outlined in Abhinaya Darpana and Natya Shastra. So Angika Abhinaya, that is the expression of the limbs. And for that, you train and you dance and you do your pure dance. Then Vachika, so that is the expression of the speech and interpreting the text. And then you have the Aharya, which here, as you can see, your costume, your makeup, and your ornaments are also part of the communication. So, for instance, in Odissi, which this is, the dancer is supposed to appear as an apsara. You have the sun and the moon painted on your forehead. Your eyes should be like Minakini, like the fish. Your eyebrows should become like Cupid's bow. Then you come to the Sattvic Abhinaya, which is the true expression. And for this, which is really what we want to aspire to as you grow through the art, this is generally performed to a song or gita, and so sometimes it's called Gita Abhinaya or Sababhinaya because it combines the Sahitya, the text, and the Abhinaya or expression. So in the same way that to reach this level where you are students, teachers, swimming in an ocean of literature and words, so you have alphabets, words, phrases, sentences, paragraphs. We have the same thing, of course, in dance. So you have your alphabets of like 26, 27, depending on the style, 25, single hand gestures, and the meaning of each. If this is Pataka, which is the flag, but it only means that if it's on top of my head as a flag, it can also be opening a door or looking in a mirror or being water or wind. So the vinayog, the meanings and the context of your single hand gestures, your double hand gestures, the expression of the eyes, the different parts of the body. And all of these are our alphabets. Then you put these together until you get karanas, movement phrases, develops in sentences, and finally you have a massive novel or epic. So I just want to keep you awake. I'll show you a little bit of a dance. This is from my Mahadevi Upasana. So I think you're familiar with Rakta Bijasura. This is the Asura who had the boon that every drop of blood that landed on the ground would clone into 1,000 of him. So there you have Mahakali, who has to now catch every drop of blood and before it hits the ground and drink it so that it doesn't go anywhere. And because she, it's quite tiresome to keep cutting off heads, which she can do endlessly, but in order to end it, she's got to do this. So this is a little clip, and what you have here is the text about this story, Rakta Bijasura, just a line. You have it interpreted sort of in a context before the words, with the words, and after. Just almost a précis. It's not a fully developed huge story. So this is Rakta Bijasura.
रक्तबीजसूर संहरिणी महाकाली महाकाली रक्तबीजसूर संहरिणी रक्तबीजसूर संहरिणी महाकाली
So, Kalidas, the great, great poet, he's considered the greatest classical Sanskrit author, 4th, 5th century, and interpreting his, I had done a production for Doordarshan once where I did 5 heroines of Kalidas. This is the photo from Meghadoot. And I'm going to show you a clip from the Malavika Agnimitra. And that's one of his lesser known plays. It's the story of the love of Agnimitra, who was a king, and he loved this beautiful handmaiden of his chief queen, and then in the end he discovers that she is of royal birth and is accepted as one of his queens. So interpreting this for Doordarshan was an opportunity to try to bring to life. And one of the things that I love about taking text is that it's the dancer's responsibility to make you understand, even if you don't know the words, even if you don't know the language. And so you have to embody it. Sometimes you are becoming the character, sometimes you are describing the character. And you also want to enhance that, just as an actor will have background and context. And so sometimes with things in temples, for instance, you may be doing something that people say is part of their prayers every single day, and now you are giving them a new understanding of the literature, of the text, of the slokas. And so this is just from Kalidas.
अभिलाष पूरण में
Okay, I'll stop that. I let it play a little just to see that we juxtapose the pure dance with the Abhinaya very often like this. So you are students of, I think, English literature, American or English literature written in English primarily, perhaps. And I've actually rarely done any interpretation of English texts. I've done things in Malayalam, in Telugu, in Tamil, in Dogra, in Bengali, in Braj Bhasha, and it's wonderful to go into texts, and the interpretation requires understanding who is the author, who is the poet, who is the writer, their historical context, and everything. The one time that I did something in English was this little clip that I'll show you, where I took some poetry from the Bible, and I did it with it being spoken in English. So as you know, in the West, there's been a great separation of divine love and human love. Whereas in our Indian philosophy, basically, human love is used as a metaphor in order to understand the less egotistical divine love. And we use Radha Krishna and so many things, Shiva Parvati. So in the Bible, there is the Song of Solomon, which is the closest to the Gita Govind, which is talking in a way that is shared. So this is just a little clip to show in interpretation of English words, so that whichever languages you understand, everyone can follow this. Oh, back. I hope this will play. Not playing. I wonder why. Just a moment.
Behold, he cometh, leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills.
Okay, I think that isn't shared. Let me go back. Sorry about that. It was playing, but I think just for me. Share screen. Oh, don't want that one. Let me go to this. Okay, here we go.
Behold, he cometh, leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a roe or a young hart. Behold, he standeth behind our wall. He looketh forth.
Okay. Somehow it does not want me to have the full screen, so I'll just show it like this.
Behold, he cometh, leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills. My beloved is like a roe or a young hart. Behold, he standeth behind our wall. He looketh forth at the window, showing himself through the lattice. My beloved spoke and said unto to me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter's past, and the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear upon the earth, the time of the singing of birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. The fig tree putteth forth her green face, and the vines with a tender grace give a good smell. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Oh, my dove, that art in the clefts of the rock, in the secret places of the stairs, let me see thy countenance, let me hear thy voice. For sweet is thy voice, and thy countenance is comely.
Now, in what I just showed you, I am interpreting the text.
Behold, he cometh.
That's funny. Now it wants to play. Okay. I'm interpreting the text, but I'm not developing the text. One thing that is quite wonderful in terms of the way dance goes into the depth with literature is what we call sancharis. So you take a line, and that same line will be repeated 6 times, 8 times, 16 times, whatever. And you keep developing the story of in that line. So for instance, if I were to, the line is that she went to the forest in the night, in order to meet Krishna. And then as I'm interpreting that, I would show how I was leaving the house, how I went outside, how I'm looking at the beautiful moonlight. I see snakes and am frightened. I think someone has caught me, but it's just twigs from a tree. And all of the things of an abhisaraka, of going, would be developed. So to show you a whole sanchari would take much more time. So what I'm going to show you is a tiny clip that is actually the entrance, the alap. So it is without words, but it is developing the idea of Radha coming to the forest to meet Krishna at the appointed time, and he actually doesn't show up till 4 a.m. And so this is like a sanchari, a development of that theme. Okay, lovely. Done. So, I don't it just wanted to jump to the next thing. So, the what you just saw is, of course, from Jayadev's Gita Govinda, and this is with 24 ashtapadis, 8 stanza texts, which are taken from the Gita Govinda, and this bhakti poetry, Shringar bhakti poetry, is then taken up in the movement all over the country. And it's another whole talk to go into bhakti literature and how it's interpreted in dance, made available to the people. That, of course, is a very big deal, but that's a talk for another day. Let me see if I can get back to. Let's see. Oh, it's going back there. How do I get out of here? This is my daughter's account, sorry. I think, wait a minute, sorry. So, there are many ways of interpreting text, and in dance, it's something that we really, here, I'm just trying to get this back. Here. Sorry, let me see if I can now share screen and get to what I want. Yes. So, this is my guru, Guru Kelacharan Mahapatra, Padma Bhushan. In Gita Govinda, we're not only celebrating the love in the text of Radha and Krishna, but the actual core theme is that this almost perfect heroine, Radha, still has not given up her self-cherishing, self-centered ego. And she wants to have the divine Krishna for herself. And so, though he loves her and doesn't want to pain her, he doesn't come to the appointed place, shows up at 4 a.m. with all of the signs of having been with another, and then and then she says, Yahi Madhava, Yahi Keshava, don't tell your lies to me. You have all of these signs. And then the next song he says, give up your vanity. Leave your pride aside. As you see, the flames of passion burn my heart. Once she understands that the divine Krishna is totally hers, but also totally everyone else's, that's when they can come to the culmination. So some people feel this poetry is all very retrograde. Why would a woman pine and moan and wait? You should just kick him out. Well, that's fine if it's Rahul or Arvind, but not if it is actually the metaphysical Paramatma, Paramatma of Krishna. So that's just a little thing. Now, one thing, just to finish off, I'd like to just say that here's an example of modern poetry, taking in Hindi and taking, I had done this is the Mahabharat, and I had to dance blind and used Hindi text, which everyone is familiar with. This is Tulsi Das's Parvati Mangal. We don't generally think of Shiv and Parvati and their Shivratri marriage as written by Tulsidas. But this is a production that I did, changing it every year, different styles, in Khajuraho on Shivratri, because it's a place of pilgrimage. And as I said, when you take a text and you're offering it to people who are familiar with the stories, familiar with the text, bringing it out in new ways, it's quite wonderful, as well as taking new literature and also bringing that to life. This was a challenge. I hope that all of you are familiar with Fakir Mohan Senapati. This is the man who was the author of Chamana Antagutta, which is the first subaltern novel. This is way before Mulk Rajanand and others. And he also helped establish Odia as a language, over 100 years ago. Now, in this production, he is being very critical of how the zamindars exploited the simple people. And it was a challenge to take a dance form that's about beauty and symmetry and love, and to show this very subaltern critique of society. But it was a wonderful challenge and very successful. It's been performed in Delhi, in Orissa, several times. And the way that I did it was that I had the text written, spoken by actors that we interpreted with Abhinaya, and then dances were done that were done in Odia. And sometimes it was like English and Hindi and Odia, sometimes it was Odia and Hindi, so variations. So I'm just going to finish by showing you a clip. This is someone we miss very much, Tom Alter, the actor, who was very kind to be one of my narrators. And so this is when we did it in Kathak in Odisha, and Sangeeta Goswain is doing the Odia, and Tom is doing, I forget if he was doing English or Hindi here. this is my guru and myself as we were. I had the wonderful opportunity to perform with him in my last program in New York at the Metropolitan Museum when he had accompanied my performance tour during Festival of India, playing Pakawaj. And actually, I'll just play this. This is Sharba Mangalam. Let's see if it'll play. So, in conclusion, what I can only say is that dance is a language, and it can take themes, wonderful themes from literature. And Martha Graham, who I had given you a quote, for instance, she would take great epics like Medea and classic Greek themes, and without there being a text, bringing the literature and the story absolutely to life. But one of the things that I love about classical Indian dance is, as I said, the dancer is an actor, and we get to go into the depth of unpeeling the onion of literature, going deep into it, understanding it, and bringing it to life. So the connection of dance and literature is absolutely interwoven in the traditions here, but it is also very close everywhere. So I have just touched on a few random thoughts about dance and literature. There are so many other directions that one can go in. And now I would like to, if there's time, I would love to make it open for questions. So, Dr. Jayashri Hazarika, please.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Students, if you have any queries, it's a very interesting topic how dance and literature are so interconnected, and ma'am has, beautifully described it in so many ways. So please, for you to do that. So please shoot questions. We're waiting.
I'm not hearing someone. If they're speaking, they need to unmute.
दोनों साइड है क्या साइड एक साइड ही है क्या
Nazir, I'm listening.
एक ये रहा कंट्रोल कर रहा पूरा
Nazir, please switch off your microphone. Nazir, please switch off your microphone.
Nazir, turn off your mic unless you have.
Nazir,
Students,
please switch off your
students, mics are
microphone.
on. Students, if you want to ask something, you
Nazir, please switch off your microphone.
Nazir, we know you're having a good time. So,
अरे बस बहुत रेडी बस
Nazir, अपना microphone बंद करो.
मैं उड़ता हुआ छत में यहाँ से नीचे गिरा सीधे नीले
people have their mics off.
तेरी गाड़ी में कर रहा है नीचे बैठा हुआ
turn off your microphone. Nazir?
There's a lot of people that have their mics on and don't realize it. So you might hear something. Thank
There
you,
was a
Tinder.
question
Just
that,
your comment.
there's a question that a student had forwarded to me. They were a little shy to,
You should never be shy. And there's like that 5-6 second rule. When you have that urge to do something, if you wait, then the time is gone. So if you think of it, just go for it. Go for it.
Just the question is that a lot of plays, like the Shakespearean plays, have been, converted into dance drama. So, how true are they to the form? I mean, is it how easy or how difficult it is to actually convert literature, which is meant to be spoken, into dance? So that's the question that I had received. So, ma'am, can you just?
Yeah, sure. It's very easy because it's a challenge and it's fun. So, for instance, when you like look at a Shakespeare play, everybody knows the play. There's been many interpretations of it, and so you want to bring something that is fresh and alive. And the thing is that we are all unique. And so when we, as individuals, bring our own sensibility to how you approach something, even when you're doing a class reading of something, obviously everyone will have different kinds of dramatic expressions and different ways of thinking about it. And so every time you can return to any literature again and again, and because you are a different person, it will always be different. If I do a choreography that I've learned from my guru, and the way it's developed is set, I will still do it differently every time because my range of emotions and who I am is different. And traditionally also, especially like in Bharatanatyam, the dancer is trained that you create on the spot those sancharis so that the line is going on and the singer knows to continue until you give a signal to go to the next line. And so you won't be repeating something that you've practiced and choreographed. And then when you take some literature, like for instance, occasionally I've done choreography at National School of Drama, and in Midsummer Night's Dream, wanting the fairies to be doing an Odysseus. So you look at it and you think, how can they do it? No interpretation is the ultimate or final one. So you create and you do it and you experience it in another way. And if you went back again, you will definitely do different things. So it's literature is a well that you can just keep drawing from, always. Literature, theater, and because you're always changing. And so how you look at the literature is going to change. Even how the teachers are teaching about your literature has to change, because it's different for each generation, with a different history, a different background, different context. And that's wonderful. Another question?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question from my side, actually.
Talk a little louder.
I have a question from my side, ma'am. This is something that I've always thought, like in India today, if you see the culture, it's like people are breaking the old traditional dance forms, and they are, merging it with the new forms. And they are, creating these hybrid dances, which is basically a amalgamation of Western, Indian, hip hop, break dance, and all of these. So what's your take on it? Is it okay to do it, or is this like a destruction? I don't know. Sometimes I'm wondering, is it okay to do such kind of hybrid dances and such elaborate steps, to the extent that it's sometimes I feel the dancers are at risk. So what's your take on this?
Well, it's a very big question. I've written a lot about this. I used to write for Asian Age twice a month for 4 or 5 years till COVID. And, one article I wrote was about fusion confusion. So, number one, whether you're communicating through words in literature or through dance or through art or through music, what is core is what is your motivation and what do you want to communicate. Actually, the genre is secondary to that, but you have to be skilled. Now, one of the things about a lot of fusion confusion is that one doesn't have a good vocabulary in a particular genre, and so you're like grabbing things and putting it together. If you're doing thoughtful combinations with an intention, you can never say that something is automatically good or bad. But if you're just very superficially taking things without understanding how they go together, it makes no sense. Now, one thing where I'm afraid everybody gets mixed up here is that when you're talking about West and East, are you talking about pop or classical? So it's like people are comparing classical Indian music with Western pop music. That doesn't make any sense. If you want to compare East and West, you compare classical Indian music with classical Western music, which you are not familiar with. If you want to talk about Western music that you're familiar with, which is pop, then compare it with Indian pop, with Bollywood. Bollywood is not classical Indian, either Carnatic or Hindustani. So just like when we're talking about literature or anything in school, first of all, you've got to, what are your terminologies? What are you comparing? As far as the question of if you mix things, you see, and whether just, classical arts are in danger. First of all, classical traditions by definition, are not the same as pop. Pop is for everybody. We all like different things at different times, different kinds of music. We don't listen to one kind all the time. What is widely popular is not the same as what takes a little more focus, a little more concentration, and not necessary knowledge, because the classical will appeal to everyone depending on how it's presented. We have a problem that younger generations have not had the kind of exposure that earlier generations had, and it's not their fault. They're simply not knowledgeable. Your grandparents grew up watching Doordarshan, which filled up the space, and they knew the difference between Kathakali and Bihu, whereas now you don't get any of these things on television. I don't think that the classical traditions are at risk just because people want to take things and mix them up. Because when you, the question is whether it's good or whether it's bad. And when you, again, if you're going for pure entertainment, or you want to touch people and move them. So you guys are all students and teachers of literature, and you have the issue like, does anybody have the focus, the mental brainwidth to read a book anymore? It's easier to just watch something on YouTube or play a video game. And but you're all here because you believe that enough people still have the bandwidth to read a book, even though that might not be everybody. And in the same way with dance, there are enough people who want to be moved, affected, transported by classical dance genres that it's worth continuing. And the fact that there are other options doesn't take that away. And I think, again, you see, in modern dance tradition that came with, as I said, Ruth St. Denis, Ted Shawn, Doris Humphrey, Martha Graham, that I gave those quotes. The idea was that you are not using a traditional language, that you are creating your own. And therefore, anything you wish to draw on is okay. You want to walk on your hands. If it makes sense for what you want to communicate, it's fine. In classical traditions, whether it's Western ballet or our traditions here, you have a vocabulary to use. And so when you are going out of that vocabulary, then you are no longer actually doing that form. I mean, in the sense that there are ranges. There is a lot of range within a genre, within a language, but once you go beyond that, then you're like, beyond the pale, you're outside of that. And so then you're doing things that are fusion, and if it works, if it's successful, if it's very well done, nothing wrong. But it is no longer that form. So it's just a question of giving the correct names to it. You can say drawing on X, Y, and Z tradition, whatever, or based on blah, 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 but you don't call it a particular classical form when you're actually not using that vocabulary, right? So for instance, if you're, like all of you know several languages, and you can do a fusion between languages depending on who you're talking to. But if you are talking in Hindi, you mix in a little bit of English, to a certain extent it's okay. But if you're, you don't say that this book is English if it's actually Hindi. You've got to say what it is. Give it the right labels. But you can never say that anything is finished or over, because there's always the things coming up through the cracks, the sprouts that are going to grow. So, you know,
As long as you're able to communicate through dance, I think it's okay, right? I mean, the
well,
basic.
it's like if you are using movement for communication, um, you basically, and you're drawing on some knowledge of some classical forms combined with modern, you're not doing that classical form. You are doing, um, you're doing contemporary dance. In contemporary dance, you have full right to draw on whatever you want, but you don't call it that form. Now, I don't know if any of you remember, several years ago, Aditi Mangaldas, who is a brilliant Kathak artist and does very innovative and creative work, she was conferred the Sangeet Natak Academy Award for modern dance, not Kathak, and she refused it because she said, what I am doing is not out of the genre of Kathak. And so she stood up for that. You know, don't take the easy way out and call me a modern dancer because you've got too many Kathak dancers that you want to give the award to, you know. And so she made that point. But for everybody here who wants to do something, you probably don't have that level of expertise, and you're doing contemporary dance and you're drawing on a little bit. See, don't forget with language, to know a language, you have to have closure. And if you want to communicate something in literature, well, one time I was asked to interpret a Sarojini Naidu poem, and I thought, what form do I want to do it in? Because I'm very lucky. I can do it in Odissi, I can do it in Chow, and I can do it in Manipuri, or I could do it in modern dance. And every form is kind of suited to certain kinds of usage. And I decided to do it as a modern dance. I decided not to do that as one of those others. That gave me full freedom for how I moved. Now, my movement and my body will be informed by the training and traditions that I have. So you will see some movement that will have, a resonance of certain forms. But it is a modern dance or a contemporary dance. And so you don't have to be ashamed or apologetic about doing that. But don't just like throw some movement in that comes from a bit that you've learned sometime and say, you see, I'm actually doing a classical dance, right? Just be honest, call it what it is, and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's the whole essence of any art form, the enjoyment of both the performer as well as the one that's performed for, the audience as well as the performer. Yes. So,
Yeah, I mean, look at all the rules for poetry, right? And then all the rules are there, and then you can break all those rules. But you have to have a good sensibility. It's not like you can do anything.
you can destroy it, you can make it, or you can destroy it. So it's
Yeah, you can say, well, I don't have to do iambic pentameter, I'm doing free verse. But it can be really nonsense and useless. So, rules are important, but and one thing is, whatever you're doing, you really need to know it before you break it. The greatest contemporary painters, behind me or in front of me, there's a portrait of me that was done by G.R. Santosh, who was famous for his tantric paintings, but he could do a painting like a Renaissance master. So, he didn't do abstract art because he wasn't capable of realistic. And so you want to be master of your abilities. And so you should be able to write in iambic pentameter before you go for free verse. Maybe.
and it's a very wonderful, beautiful example, and so relevant for our field, because people have this notion that dance is different, literature is different. But today, you have brought these two genres together, and you have made they show the connections, these linkages. That's very important. And I think you have given so much food for thought for the scholars, as well as our even our PhD scholars have joined us today. So maybe some we are hoping that some might take this up in their future research, as you had predicted. And I can see the relevance of this, I think, work that you have shown us today. And it was a visual delight, ma'am, seeing your performances. And I'm sure I'm going to, open up more YouTube videos of yours and, keep on looking, because you have made me an addict of yours. So thank you so much for joining us today. And on behalf of the Department of English and Manav Rachna, I give a very big thank you that you have joined us today. You have shown us a new, given us new insight into how literature actually can also enter into the field of dance, and how dance can enter literature. And it's new connections, new bonds that we have seen today. And thank you so much, ma'am. And I'd like to now welcome our HOD, Dr. Shivani Vashish, to also, tell us a few things about this today's session. So, ma'am, over to you. Shivani, ma'am, please. I welcome you. She's our HOD, ma'am.
Someone needs to unmute, I think.
Shivani, ma'am, can you please unmute yourself? We are waiting.
So during COVID, one of the things I did was upload a lot of videos onto my YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to go there, you'll find lots of texts that are interpreted not only by myself but by others as well. All right, now who is speaking?
Ma'am, there is a network issue. Our HOD is not able to join, but she has sent her regards, and she is really glad that we had this session, and she looks forward to have more such sessions with you, and more, students we have, as we have new students coming every day. And we would love to have more thing, and maybe we can meet physically also. In this COVID times, online has become a norm, but we would like to break that, and have this performance based maybe interactions in future. So thank you so much once again from every one of us, and thank you so much, ma'am, joining us today. And also I thank all the students and Dr. Tripti especially, who has made this event possible, and our HOD, Dr. Shivani Vashisht, who has been with us throughout, and all the faculty members who have contributed for this event. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Namaskar. Have a great day. Stay safe.